Hello everyone and welcome to the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com. That's George O'Gorman. I'm Mike Samsel. We'll be with you every Wednesday here on WBCB1490.com to take a look at the week that was in Mercer County and also preview the week that's coming up. And it's already 1 week old, but already becoming my favorite segment, Ask Oj. We'll have another question for Oj to kind of look through the annals of time in Mercer County sports. And George, what a week it was to start out in Mercer County.
Yeah, what do we have? Three kids run for 200 yards?
Yeah, we had Brian Shane Howard go over 200 yards.
210 and 4 touchdowns. Samai Mitchell from Lawrence had, I think, 208 yards in their big win, opening day win over Pemberton. And I think there might have been another big rushing performance. But at any rate, some good performances. The Nottingham win was that we did on BCB was a very good game. I got to be impressed with the defense that we saw from the North Stars, especially their linebacker crew and their big defensive tackles.
Yeah, absolutely. Their defensive tackles. Mario Boswell played tremendous in that game, as did Ryan Malagrino, the transfer for Steiner. He had a couple of sacks and a forced fumble, and Frank Gatto just couldn't say enough about his defensive crew.
Yeah, I think they had seven sacks total, if I'm not mistaken, and I think one of the big improvements has been the size of their defensive tackles.
Right.
I think they're both of them probably go around 230. And as Frank Gatto had said, that was one thing that they didn't have previously, but they have it this year, and that allows their linebackers, to get through. And McGovern Gabriel, and Devin Thompson and Ryan Malagrino did an excellent job, and be interesting to see what they do again this week, because I think Trenton's going to have a bigger offensive line than what Hightstown showed last week, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be one of the games we're going to preview. That'll be coming up a little bit later on in the Mercer County Football Show, being brought to you by St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton, and also Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. Next game we're going to take a look at was a game we didn't cover on the WBCB Sports Network, but what a game it was. 28-20, Hopewell Valley gets the win over Hamilton. Austin Fellows, the big performance in that game, the quarterback for Hopewell Valley. 10 of 18 for 182 yards and a couple of touchdowns in that one as well. Rich Fisher from Fish for Scores in the Trentonian was over at that game, and what a great game that was as well over in Hopewell Valley.
Yeah, it was nip and tuck most of the way. I mean, I think that they got out to an early 2-touchdown lead, and then Hamilton came back. Hamilton, still a few question marks there. I mean, they've graduated some key people. They don't have the big running back like they had last year with Brett Stroman. It's going to be interesting to see how they do Saturday morning when Notre Dame comes in and Notre Dame opens its season. The Irish were the only team that didn't play last week, and they'll be coming into Bill McAvoy Field over at Hamilton for an 11 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, and that should be interesting because the Irish, as we mentioned in the preview, in the Trentonian preview section, that they're kind of rebuilding this year. They hope to rebound after a rare 5-5 season. I think I checked my records, and it's the the third time in Chappie Moore's coaching career at Notre Dame High School that the Irish did not win at least 6 games.
Yeah.
So they're going to bounce back. They've got they lost some key people in the secondary last year in Darius Norman and Ryan Germano. But their secondary looks to be pretty good, pretty strong again, with Prince Patterson, one of the co-captains back there. You've got Zach Tharp, who's playing both ways, I guess, in the line, and he's another captain and one of the veterans of that team. So I think Chappie had said that they're going to be starting 8 underclassmen or 8 new kids who didn't play last year. So that's going to be an interesting situation that the Irish are in, and they had Wally Nance, who was their leading rusher last year, is primarily going to be playing linebacker this year. So we'll have to see what the Irish are going to have on the offensive package. I know Rob Coven is their new quarterback, and my memory serves me correct. That's the first time that the Irish are going into a season with a quarterback who hasn't had at least one varsity game under his belt. I think I'd have to go back probably to maybe the late 90s.
Right.
Because I know that there was always when you go back to the days of E.J. Nemeth and Jay Graber, and there was always a backup quarterback, or at least a quarterback who had some prior varsity experience, and I don't recall Rob Bakoven ever starting a game until this year, Saturday.
Yeah, so that'll certainly be an interesting thing for the Irish. Again, that preview will be coming up in just a little bit. Andrew Yaska went for 68 yards. Alec Heese, 56. And Mark Wenner goes for 40 for Hopewell Valley as well. And another game that we were talking about, George, you mentioned a lot of new starters for the Steinert Spartans, and they struggled 24-0. They fell to Drake Graber's Allentown Redbirds.
Well, Norman Williams is an excellent back. I think he might have had 200 yards too, I think.
He went for 153 on the ground and then a 64-yard screenplay. So he had over 200 all-purpose.
That's 200 total offense. Yeah, Norman Williams, that's... You know, some people are saying that Allentown could be the best team in Mercer County. Well, even though they're not a Mercer County school, they're a Monmouth County school.
Right.
But I think the people that are making that prediction are from Monmouth County. But at any rate, Jay Graber's, with Nick Palladino at quarterback, I mean, they can throw the ball, and Jay Graber is always, in the brief time that he's been with the Redbirds, he's come up with some great offensive packages, and that was an impressive win last week, and we'll see. I would think that the Redbirds should be able to handle New Egypt on Friday night. New Egypt is, years ago, all those New Egypt kids would have gone to Allentown. Then they split Allentown, and New Egypt formed its own high school. But so there's still that rivalry there. New Egypt kind of got trashed by Florence.
They sure
which
did.
is no surprise because Florence. Joe Frapoli's always has a great program over there, year in and year out. I think he's the winningest coach in South Jersey football. But that should be an interesting game, and of course, we'll see how good Florence is, and we'll actually see how good Lawrence is because Lawrence will be over at Florence. Interesting matchup there, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
Really
glad we're not having to do play-by-play on that one.
Really a tongue twister there, Lawrence and Florence. But I think it's the first time since the days of the old Delaware Valley League back in the 70s, where Lawrence would be playing against Florence.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup. Another game on Friday night that you covered, West Windsor Plainsboro South 34, Trenton 16. Brian Shaynauer, 33 rushes for 210 yards, 4 touchdowns, and even threw a lightning delay in that game as well.
And the interesting thing was that on his first carry of the season, Brian Shaynauer rips off, I think it was probably about a 60-some yard touchdown run. And it was a close game at halftime. It was like 13-8.
Right.
And, then Trenton still felt they had a shot in the game. They were having trouble completing passes. Shaynauer actually came up. I think he might have had an interception. Yeah, he did have an interception that set up a touchdown. Knocked a few passes down. I mean, he's a kid that plays both sides of the ball. He could easily be an all-state candidate either on offense or defense. But then he broke it open. It was interesting. They had the lightning delay on the second play, I guess it was, of the third quarter. And the Lightning, from what I understand, was way up in North Jersey.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because we had a lightning delay in Allentown as well, and ours had struck right in the middle of halftime. And again, there were no storms in the area, nothing like that. It was just a strike of lightning, and most of the games in Mercer County had been delayed.
I think Marty Flynn was telling me that one of his associates there had something on his cell phone that shows you where the weather conditions are.
Right.
And they had no rain or any kind of storm clouds within about a 50-mile radius of West Windsor Plainsboro South Field. Yet there was a lightning strike way up north, and they did have some problems up in North Jersey. So maybe that might have just been a bolt of lightning, but it delayed the game. You got to wait 30 minutes anytime you get a lightning strike like that. And the referee saw it. I think only one referee saw it, but he was the head official.
Right.
So they stopped the game, emptied the bleachers, because I guess everybody's sitting in aluminum bleachers, and you don't want any.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
pretty dangerous right there.
Yeah, that's a very dangerous situation. And as far as Trenton goes, right now we have no new information. If those of you haven't heard, there was a situation where Raphael Mack, the head coach of Trenton, was arrested along with his brother Mayor Tony Mack. We have no new information on that as far as if he's going to coach the team this weekend or not. Stay tuned to Trentonian.com and WBCB1490.com for any update that we have on that. As soon as we hear anything, we'll be sure to update you on that situation as well. Just some of the other games through Mercer County. Robbinsville had a tough week. They fell 32-6 to Bordentown. Allentown. Cinnaminson 35-7 over Ewing. Florence, as you mentioned, 43-0. They win over New Egypt. And you talked about it. Drove for Poli down there, just reloads.
Reloads every year. I mean, it's, and he graduated some excellent running backs from a team that went to the Central Jersey Group 1 championship game again last fall. Lost to Asbury Park over at the College of New Jersey on Lion Stadium. But again, the Flashes are always a team that never rebuilds; they just reload.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they should be very good again in that division. It's, with the new alignment, they're not necessarily playing. Well, they're still playing some of the teams. Ewing has got a tough schedule. I mean, under Drew Bessler, the new coach, they're in that new division of the WJFL, the West Jersey Football League, where they're playing Cinnaminson, they're playing Pemberton, they're playing Willingboro, they're playing Holy Cross. I think they're playing Burlington Township, and all those teams have very rich football traditions. And, not that Ewing doesn't,
right?
But it's going to be interesting to see if Ewing can put some points on the board. Nigel Williams, the quarterback, who actually has a year under his belt, he wasn't expected to start last year, but with the suspension and then the injury that ended the season for Darryl Griffin, that forced Nigel Williams to take over, and actually he did a pretty good job. But he had some excellent receivers, Ron Valentine. So the Ewing Blue Devils, I think they're down in, they're home to play Pemberton Friday night.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, right? I think Robbinsville goes into Burlington.
I believe so. Lawrence 33-12. They got the victory over Pemberton last week. Princeton 27-21. Again, they get the upset over North Burlington to start the season. Pretty shocking.
Well, I don't know. I mean, last year we weren't sure what Princeton had. Princeton did have some excellent players last year.
That they did.
Unfortunately, Alex Mitko got hurt in that opening game against Northern Burlington and really didn't come back until late in the season. But Joe Gargione's Little Tigers, they did an excellent job. And then to turn around and do it again this year was the Northern Burlington team that was the top seed last year in Central Jersey Group 3.
Right.
And was, picked to win that division, although they lost, they ended up losing. I guess Neptune beat Allentown, and then Neptune turned around and beat Northern Burlington.
Correct, yeah.
To get into the championship game at Rutgers, where they led, Steiner led early, I guess, and then they came back late.
Yeah, they took a 28-21 lead to the half in that game, did Steiner.
But kudos to Rob Radis and the Lawrence Cardinals. They've had two rare losing seasons in a row, and as Rob said, that's not something that they're accustomed to. And Samai Mitchell and some of the guys over there that really did an excellent job, and they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. So it's we'll see what they can do when they go against Florence this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And final game in Mercer County last week, 29-7 ran Cocos Valley down to West Windsor, Plainsboro North. So again, a bit of a struggle for the North Knights to start out the year.
That was North without Josh Bloom, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, their key offensive player, and of course he didn't play. So that you got to wonder how much that hurt Chris Casamento's offense.
Absolutely.
Cocos Valley is always one of the bigger, stronger teams, although they haven't always been, above 500. They did it a couple of years ago, and I think they gave Notre Dame a tough battle. And their RV is a team that, when things are working well for them, they can be a very dominating football team, and they were against North. But we'll have to see how the Mount Holly Ball Club does as they continue on in their pursuit of I guess it's the Capital Division. I lose track of the names.
Yeah, sometimes they change them around every year. You're watching the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com, brought to you by St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton, as well as Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33, and Hamilton Township. George and I will come on back, take a preview of the games coming up this week in Mercer County. It's coming up next here on the Mercer County Football Show.
The Trentonian presents Philadelphia Eagles Football Frenzy. You could win the grand prize to see the Eagles play Dallas in Dallas on December 2nd. Get your copy of the Daily Trentonian to register. Enter between now and September 30th for your chance to win. Every Sunday, the Trentonian is giving out a $100 gift card, a 2-night hotel package for two with your choice of a regular season Eagles game, and on October 7th, the grand prize will be announced. A flyaway package to Dallas to see the Eagles take on the Cowboys December 2nd with 2-night hotel accommodations. For entry rules, check the Daily Trentonian and enter as often as you like in the Trentonian or online at Trentonian.com. It's the Philadelphia Football Frenzy from the Trentonian, the only local paper serving both Bucks and Mercer counties.
I'm Jerry Jablonowski, President and Chief Executive Officer of St. Francis Medical Center. For over 137 years, St. Francis has remained committed to the people of Trenton, living out our mission to be a transforming, healing presence in the communities we serve by delivering top-quality health care to all in a personal and compassionate manner. We have continually expanded our services to meet the changing healthcare needs of our city. Despite the hospital changes taking place in Trenton, St. Francis will continue to be here, providing all the residents of Trenton with access to top-quality health care, both at our hospital and within your communities where you live and work. Our renowned services in cardiac care, cancer treatment, and stroke care, in addition to our newly designed comprehensive care of chronic diseases, will continue to provide Trenton with the best in healthcare services. Our emergency room is always open for your immediate needs in times of medical crisis. St. Francis Medical Center will be here so you'll be well.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com. Alongside George O'Gorman, I'm Mike Samsel. This week's Mercer County Football Show is being brought to you by St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital in the city of Trenton, and as well as Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. Taking a look at the games we have coming up for you this week in Mercer County. A game that we're going to feature on the WBCB Sports Network Trentonian pregame show starts at 6:45 on Friday night. Steiner travels into Pirate Field to take on West Windsor Plainsboro South. And after the performance that Brian Schoenhauer put on last week, George, it's going to be very tough for the Spartans heading into Pirate Field.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for them. I think, what was it, 2 years ago? I think they beat Allentown, knocked the Redbirds out of, no, actually it was West Windsor that knocked them out of playoff contention. But Steiner has done well under Dan Caruso. It's, that's a tough way to open the season. You're opening up against a very good Allentown team, which some people, like I said, think could be the best in the in this area. If they're not the best, maybe West Windsor Plainsboro South is the best.
Right.
And that's who Steiner has back-to-back. And then I think next week Steiner may be playing Nottingham, which
just a tough 30 games
possibly
to
could come in at 2-0. And this, that's interesting because if Steiner doesn't get the win this week, they could be going into that game against Nottingham 0-2, and the North Stars, if they can beat Trenton, would be going in 2-0. And that would really be an interesting battle at Klockner Road, and there have been some great ones in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that certainly would be an interesting battle, but in this particular game, unfortunately for Dan Caruso and the Spartans, I have them falling to 0-2. I have West Windsor Plainsboro South.
Oh yeah, you got to go with West Windsor Plainsboro South, and they've got a lot of weapons. We talk about Brian Schoenhauer, but the new quarterback Fuller, Malik Fuller, I think his name is.
Yeah,
he did an excellent job. He can throw the ball, and they got Nick Benford is an excellent receiver for them, and that's going to create some difficulty for the Spartans in matching up with some of the receivers that West Windsor Plainsboro South has. And they've also got an excellent pass rush and guys that do some great blocking for them. Diego Coutinho was one of the top players last week for South in its win, and they shut down a good Trenton running attack.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how they do. But again, a lot of the kids on West Windsor Plainsboro South, for a big school like that, it's surprising that so many kids go both ways. But then again, as Todd Smith said, they only have, 32 kids on the team.
Yeah, not a huge roster for West Windsor Plainsboro South, but they're all effective players. And, Todd Smith is one of those guys, whether you play both ways or not, he's going to put the best 11 out there. Next game we're going to take a look at, this one also on Friday night, a team that you and I saw Saturday afternoon, George. Hightstown has their first home game of the year. They're taking on the Princeton Little Tigers. Another interesting matchup.
That's a very interesting matchup. That's an old-time rivalry that goes back a long time. Before there were any West Windsor Plainsboro North or South, a lot of those kids went to Princeton.
Right. And
that rivalry between Princeton and Hightstown goes back a long time, and it's become a very good rivalry. And you got to wonder how hungry Pete Precious kids are going to be. they really weren't out of that game. They didn't get really dominated by Nottingham,
Right.
but they really couldn't move the ball because of Nottingham's pass rush. And they got to Dustin Crowman 7 times and sacked him.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some receivers, but he really wasn't able to throw anything deep because he constantly had people in his face. I would think playing at home, the Rams, Pete Bresh's Rams should get their first win over there as they open the home season over there at Dave McIntyre Stadium. And, they've got some people, Jude Brenya, Joe DeCristofaro on defense, Brenya going both ways. Brenya committed, as you mentioned last week, Brenya had committed already to Old Dominion.
Yeah, verbal commitment to ODU.
And, he's a player that's only been playing a couple of years, but he's really caught the eye. Caught the eye of a lot of college recruiters. And he had some decent offers coming into his senior season.
I'm actually going to go the other way on this one. I'm going to go with the Princeton Little Tigers. I think they're going to ride the emotional high coming off the win against Northern Burlington. And I think, as you said, you have to wonder, I don't want to say wonder about the motivation, but just after a loss like that, the frustration level would be more the term I'm looking for out of Pete Bresh's team heading up against the Little Tigers.
Well, I don't know. I can't necessarily agree on that point because last year the Rams lost some tough games, started out slow, but they were in every game.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were, as you said, they weren't out of it last week.
And Crowman can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got some receivers. He's got Max Cutler and Kevin Lenorick.
Yeah.
I mean, those are 2 good receivers. He just couldn't get him the ball.
Right.
And when he did last week against Nottingham had some people guarding him. I'm going to go with the Hightstown Rams to even their record at 1-1 and get that first win, and then just hopefully build from there.
Friday night, New Egypt heading into Allentown. That's going to be a tough matchup for New Egypt. I like the Redbirds pretty big in this one.
Redbirds, I'll say the Redbirds by at least 2 touchdowns, maybe 3. I think that Nick Palladino is going to be able to throw the ball over the place, and I don't know if New Egypt can stop Norman Williams running.
Yeah, that's going to be very tough.
I mean, it's Florence has a good running game, and it depends on how New Egypt comes into this game, because there is still that rivalry there.
Absolutely.
With New Egypt and Allentown, because as I mentioned previously, a lot of those kids, you go back maybe 15 years ago, and all those kids that would now go to New Egypt were going to Allentown.
Right.
So that's like kind of like a crosstown rivalry. It's probably one of the only real neighborhood rivalries that Allentown has on its schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that New Egypt would love nothing more than to knock off the Redbirds, who made it to the playoffs last year. And I just don't see it happening. I just see Nick Palladino throwing the ball all over the place and Norman Williams running at will almost.
Some action that we have for you on Saturday. First one, Hopewell Valley traveling into West Windsor Plainsboro North after the performance that Hopewell Valley put on last Saturday against Hamilton. I like Hopewell Valley pretty big in this one as
Dave
well.
Caldwell's club has, we thought that they had hurt. They were hurt by losing players like Matt Pagano, but Alec Hosse's really done an outstanding job, and they got a lot of weapons in that Hopewell Valley backfield, and they're gonna. I can see them really going to 2-0 against West Windsor Plainsboro North, which unfortunately looks like it's going to be struggling again this year.
Yeah,
but you got to like the Hopewell Valley Bulldogs, and they're big improvements coming over there. They're going to get the turf field. They got a new field.
Mm-hmm.
I think they may be getting lights pretty soon. There'll be another school in the CVC with lights. I remember when we didn't have any.
Right.
And then I think Hightstown was the first to get lights, and that goes back then. Actually, Notre Dame after that, Trenton Catholic. Well, then it was McCorston. They had lights.
Right.
And then we seldom had maybe 1 or 2 Friday night games. Now we sometimes could have 5 because we've got 8 schools now.
Right.
8 out of the 14 that have lighted football fields. The only ones that don't are the 3 schools over there in Hamilton, Nottingham, Hamilton, and Steinert.
Mm-hmm.
Princeton doesn't have lights, and I guess that's about it. Ewing's got them.
Yeah.
So Friday night lights are definitely taking over in Mercer County.
Yeah, that they have, and a couple of the pretty good games we're expecting this week. A speed versus speed matchup coming up on Saturday morning as Nottingham travels into Trenton.
Is that a morning kickoff?
I believe that's a morning kickoff.
I thought it might have been in the afternoon. I think
Okay.
Trenton has pretty much scheduled most of their kickoffs for either 12 or 1 o'clock. But
okay.
yeah, I mean Trenton's got some weapons, as we said. You know, they got the great pass receiving combination with the fastest quarter miler in the state in Zaire Clemens, and they've also got Hakeem Horton that can catch the ball. And they've got a what's it? Truman Nieves is a power running back for them. I think he got hurt early in the second half or late in the first half against West Windsor South. But Ryan Wharton is a back who had 100 yards. He had over 100 yards. I think he had like 96 in the first half against West Windsor Plainsboro South. And Ryan Wharton is a player that you know, bears watching when you're watching the Trenton team. And you know, Trenton, it depends on how things are progressing over there. I would think that Raphael Mack will be back as coach. From what I understand, speaking to some people over there who were told they couldn't speak to the press.
Right.
But I was able to find out that the school board would have to suspend him with pay,
Okay.
I guess, pending, you know, the fact that he's not behind bars apparently
Right.
allows him to continue his job and to coach the Tornadoes. If for some reason he's not there, they do have a big coaching staff, a lot of volunteer assistants, guys like Sean Hackett, former star at Hamilton West, is an excellent you know, offensive player, defensive player, coach. And Joe Misnick, who was the coach a couple of years ago for the Tornadoes, he's still on the staff. So, you know,
It'd be worth keeping an eye on for sure.
it will be. And you know, Trenton unfortunately had some injuries last week, and they made some mistakes and kind of shot themselves in the foot. And against West Windsor Plainsboro South, you can't do that. But I think Nottingham will. I think Nottingham should be able to move the ball. And Stephen Adams
Looks very good in that
very good
game.
for a sophomore making his first, or junior actually, making his first start. And he's got some receivers. He threw some nice passes, especially when he was able to sprint out.
Right.
And I think that you're right. That could be a high scoring game. And I kind of like Nottingham in that one.
I like Nottingham in that one as well. I think they're going to get the victory. In the final game that we'll have for you on the WBTB Sports Network, starting at 10:45 with the Trentonian pregame show, Notre Dame will be at Hamilton. That should be a very interesting game to start out the year for the Irish.
Yeah, very interesting game. You know, Chappie said last week when I spoke to him that that extra week of not having to play on opening Saturday when everybody else played really helped his team. He felt it would help them because he said they had they could use another week of work. They had a scrimmage too. I think they scrimmaged Petty last Thursday while everybody else was getting ready for their opener. So the Irish, as I said, they've got a lot of young kids that are going to be moving in and starting assignments. They are fairly experienced in the offensive line.
That they are, yeah.
And so that should help the Irish this week. And again, you know, with the leadership they're going to get from guys like Prince Patterson and Zach Tharp, Rob McCoven. I got a feeling Rob McCoven's going to be an excellent young quarterback. The Irish have had pretty steady quarterbacks. You go back to the days of Anthony Perna, and last year when Sam McDermott was the quarterback after replacing Perna when Perna got hurt midway through his junior year. I don't know. I mean, I think that McCoven they're going to keep things simple. Chappie said he's actually impressed with McCoven because he thinks McCoven is ahead of where he thought he would be right now.
Right.
I'll go with the Irish to pull out that one. Could be close, but it depends on how much Hamilton, Tom Hogan, gets his troops back up after their loss at Hopewell. I got to feel that they thought they were going to be able to handle Hopewell.
Right.
But again, maybe Hopewell is better than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll see that in week one where maybe a team that we weren't expecting comes out and plays well, and a team that we were expecting to be a little better doesn't put out their best effort. I'm with you, George. I like this game. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I like the Irish coming out at the end. And that, of course, leads us to the way that we wrap up every show here on the Mercer County Football Show, brought to you by St. Francis Medical Center and Haldeman Ford Subaru. And that is Ask Oj. So, George, last week we asked you about your best quarterback that you've seen in Mercer County.
I couldn't really pinpoint any of them.
Right.
Because there have been so many of them. And, I mean, as it was, I almost forgot Scott Bruner.
Right, absolutely. And
who ended up playing in the NFL. But,
yeah.
I mean, as far as great overall performances, as far as just rushing performances.
Yeah, that's this week's question. Best overall performance.
Well, lately we've had some outstanding running performances. Guys like Brian Shanehour, who I think, I have to check these stats, but I think he's got a streak of like 14 straight games over 100 yards, maybe even more than that. Because I think every game since he broke in as a sophomore, he may have only missed 1 or 2 games that he didn't get over 100 yards, and I think then he may have got 80 or 90.
Right.
But you talk about Brian Shanehour. You talk about the kid at Allentown.
Norman Williams?
No, before that. It slips my mind now. But, I mean, there have been some great individual performances. I got to still remember, I think one of the great overall performances I've ever seen was a kid named Paul Miles.
Okay.
From Princeton, back in the 70s. Now, Paul Miles, a lot of people may have forgotten him, but he had like several 4 or 5 touchdown games.
Right.
Went to Nebraska. Played at Nebraska with Irving Fryer and those guys.
Pretty impressive company to hold.
Yeah, and Paul Miles was an excellent running back for the Little Tigers and a great sprint man. I mean, it'd probably take me a couple days to sit down and think of all the great individual performances that I've seen. I mean, Jay Graber, had some phenomenal performances.
Right.
Tyquan Underwood is as a receiver. Brian Bivens, the guy over at Ewing that was one of the great rushers, running backs in CVC history. So there have been some really outstanding ones, and I'd have to go back and check over the stats to see. Because there are some guys may have done it both ways, offense and defense.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And that'll wrap up this week's Mercer County Football Show. You got one more?
I wanted to mention one thing. A lot of people may not remember it, but we lost one of the great Mercer County football players of all time this past weekend when Alan Skip Scott passed away. Skip was the quarterback on the only undefeated Trenton High football team that I can remember, which was the 1970 team that went 8-0-1. And Skip was an outstanding athlete. He was the point guard on a Trenton basketball team in his senior year that was ranked number 1 in the state and lost only 2 games, lost to Camden in the Central Jersey, or actually in the state semifinal. He was an excellent center fielder in baseball. Went down to Maryland State. He was the quarterback on that team, which included guys like Tony Persicelli, longtime friend and former sports writer, and Bob Pernetti. I know Skip was really close with former Mayor Doug Palmer.
Right.
And we're going to miss Skip Scott. Skip, actually, in the days when I was still a little athletically inclined and I played flag football, I was the center and Skip was the quarterback. But, he's a great guy, and, and I just want to take this moment to remember Skip Scott as one of the great, may still be one of the greatest 3 sport athletes ever to play at Trenton High.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone here at the WBCB Sports Network, as well as George and myself, send our condolences to the friends and family of Skip Scott, and that is how we'll end this week's Mercer County Football Show, again brought to you by St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital in the city of Trenton, and Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. Big thanks to Jeff Bone for helping us out again in today's broadcast. For George O'Gorman, I'm Mike Samsel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday here on the Mercer County Football Show.